Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Agency Side podcast. My name is Justin Levinson, and I am your host. Today, I'm with Marcus Foley, who is the co-founder of Tommy. They're an outstanding digital-first creative and production studio, and I'm so excited to have the conversation with you today, Marcus, and learn more about you. Thank you so much for being here and speaking with me.
Thank you. Looking forward to the conversation, Justin.
I know it's kind of a broad question, but maybe you could tell the viewers, how you got into this particular space.
I always tell this story, and at least I'm not doing this one on stage because people look at me oddly, but I suppose I fell in love with a dancing chicken. And it's not any old chicken. This chicken would do anything that you asked it to. It would dance, it would sing, it would jump up and down. And it turns out it was, this is about 20 odd years ago, and it was a subservient chicken, and it was a Burger King stunt that I saw. And it was heralding the new era of video marketing. I was like, wow, this is incredible. So you could just put any instruction. I thought this thing was live, but it wasn't. It was 400, 600 actions pre-recorded. And it's like, wow, I kind of want to get into that. So it was the very early days of looking at agencies like Crispin Porter Bogusky and some of the emerging digital agencies here in London. And that kind of where I really got into digital marketing. I've been in digital for over 20 years, which I think in dog years means I'm dead, right? It's a long time in the age of digital. But yeah, that's kind of how I got it. And one of the things I've always loved is I always loved like Burger King, for example, the way they hacked popular culture over the years. I remember them doing the Whopper sacrifice when we're getting too many friends we didn't have on Facebook. You get rid of 10, they'll give you a free Whopper. The way they use out of home. So always drawn to these brands that are quite disruptive, quite distinctive. We work with brands like Netflix, and it's kind of how I fell in love with the industry. And I think 20 years later, I still love stuff I see every day by the brilliance in our industry across the globe, which is brilliant. It's a great place to be.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I guess maybe for the viewers who might not know, I've given a brief description of what you guys do at Tommy, but maybe you could also tell the viewers, what exactly you guys do in this digital space.
So we're a digital creative and production agency. Traditionally, we work with brands like Netflix. We're big in the entertainment space, Amazon Prime Video, Paramount Plus. We're a global creative partner of TikTok. So we do a lot of augmented reality, a lot of the lenses you see. I think we've worked on over 120 client projects with them in the last couple of years. So brilliant client. And we've also worked with Google, YouTube, work in the beauty industry. It's quite interesting when people see our work, they love our work, but don't always love the way they've bought us, right? So when you work with brands like Netflix, we do some quite brave, quite bold work, the way they turn up in categories, the way they want to turn up in audiences, and I'll give you a couple of examples later. So it's really hard when you're sort of transcending over into sort of traditional marketing and brand world, and they try and justify what you're doing in the entertainment space. It's kind of it's hard, right? So I'll give you an example. If you think about the launching of a TV show or a streaming show or a film, you've got your press day, you've got your access to talent, you've got the premiere. So what can, you've got trailer release. What can you do that's different? What can you do for someone like Netflix that really helps them, land in popular culture and become part of a moment? So we always think of it that way. So for example, we hijacked a plane full of influencers for a premiere for Netflix. We invited 40 influencers onto an airplane and we hijacked it with vampires. But what they didn't know, there's a whole live Twitch audience of 100,000 people controlling their experience. So where they thought they were coming in and they were going to have blood cocktails and get boarded onto an airplane, we've got this live activation going on for 90 minutes with an audience. Now, if you said to other people your live premiere or the equivalent of a big product launch, why do we let 300,000 people on Twitch hijack and do whatever they want? Not many people would do that. But the interaction levels and the distinctiveness of what you do there is incredible, right? And same thing for instead of launching a trailer, why don't you let someone play it? So when we did Army of Thieves, instead of, just actually putting the trailer out, we actually created the game experience. You could pull your tribe together, go and try and crack the codes. So whatever we're doing in Netflix, we're always trying to do something quite interesting in terms of taking the things that you standardly do and then do something interesting. A brand like Netflix want to turn up in popular culture. They have titles that they work on so that they haven't got big IPs necessarily that they have to build these IPs. They might want to land in a sci-fi audience or into a gaming audience. So they really know how to go in and disrupt and do stuff like that. And then I think mentality-wise, obviously right down to things we do in content marketing. We're very big in social and content marketing. We're always thinking about hacking the format, playing around with the rules. We've always just done that very, very intuitively in terms of like how you turn up in the world. And we've always asked this question, do we deserve your attention? And it's a truthful answer. A brand should ask that. And if the answer is no, you should stop and, when you see something turn up for 2 seconds in someone's feed, is it truly, truly worth of attention? So kind of a bit of everything we do. We're not an experiential agency, but we do experience. We're not a classic out-of-home agency, but we do loads of out-of-home. So I don't know. It's kind of a weird space for agencies, isn't it? Who you are and how clients are buying you, I suppose, Justin.
That you're doing the brand and doing entertainment and such a wide variety of different offerings, because some agencies are they're just focusing kind of on one piece of it. Yeah, I guess maybe you could tell me, I know you're a co-founder. Do you have a partner that you sort of work with? How is your team sort of structured?
So we're based in London, LA, and Singapore, and I've got 2 other founding partners, Chris and Will. They're definitely the brains and the brilliance behind the agency. So Chris is our CEO now, but we founded the agency 14 years ago. We got talking and we approached Paramount Pictures, funnily enough. They were one of our founding clients, and they'd said to us, look, I'll give you one of these titles, and you had one of 2 options, and they offered us a Marvel title or a smaller title. So we took the smaller title and did some digital advertising and built the agency from there. Obviously they told us if we messed it up, we'd never work with them again. So just pressure, but it was great to have a founding client. I've met Chris and Will. Will is he's like the design director, chief design officer. I personally think he's one of the best designers in the industry. So I admire him massively. He's carried the weight of the agency in terms of the output for years, and probably reason why we attract some incredible clients for quite a small agency. And then Chris, I think Chris is very much, he's a big driver behind the agency over the years. I think the thing I admire the most about him is probably his ability to see things coming in with technology and how you can apply that. So he was the first into Tumblr when Yahoo, we were the first probably to hack Tumblr and create hacked Tumblr movie sites. We were the first to break formats on Yahoo and MSN on the homepage takeovers. He got us into TikTok. We were one of 5 agencies globally chosen to be a creative partner at TikTok. And, I actually asked him this question recently. I said, why were we chosen? We're quite small. And he said, because we could use the platform better than they could because of our development teams. So he's always, Chris has always had that real sort of foresight, as well as actually he doesn't do as much now, as well as being a great creative and ideas person. But, as you build your agency, you bring people in and you sort of remove yourself more and more from some of the stuff you probably love and you like doing. But yeah, they're my 2 partners. They've been working with me now for 14 years. Chris has been sitting opposite me for many years. So one client described him as my work wife. He's probably seen me more than he had his wife over the last 14 years.
Yeah, I talk to agency owners all the time, and it seems to be a lot of these agencies have got their success by that same thing. I was just talking to a fellow from Zambezi last week. I believe it was like a Coca-Cola project that was given to them. It was a small thing. It was one job, a couple of co-founders. They nailed it, and that just opened up the door for so many other opportunities. I wonder, when you guys first came together to start the company, were you nervous about it? Were you worried about when that first job would come in, or were you feeling pretty confident that if you build it, they will come, kind of thing?
I just bought the first house and had a baby 8 weeks earlier. Chris is probably nearly in a similar situation. Were we nervous? We're probably not naive, but probably didn't try not to think about it too much. I think at the time we weren't happy in terms of, I met these guys and I went to work at another agency. Chris and Will, Chris had won Webbies and things and done amazing projects. He's a talent, right? And I've always been like, I've enjoyed business development and sort of pitching people's ideas and thinking. Chris and Will, he's just fantastic. And he's worked on everything, Top Gun, Terminator movie, like you think of every title in big universes. That's how good he is. So there's kind of intrepidation, but also just personally a belief that these 2 are fantastic. And like, I think I can represent the ideas, the thinking and what they can produce. Right. And then also my own drivers, I think, to be more creative in terms of what I wanted to do. So yeah, we started off, we played office. Chris and I would go and sit in a hotel lobby in central London in Piccadilly Circus, right next to Leicester Square, actually, where they do the film premieres. It probably felt at home for us, and we'd go and sit there and have coffee and meetings. We approached a very good PR agency, a woman called Lydia Hoy, who was the MD there, and said, look, this is 14 years ago, said, look, we're free digital experts, we like to think we are. How about we come in, you give us some desk space, and we'll be on hand to give you some digital advice for your PR. And they had Samsung and British Telecom, and one of their partner agencies was working with Xbox and Microsoft, a couple of drink brands, and that's where we ended up this. We went in, we had this space. The three of us had a little office inside a big PR studio. It looked fantastic on the centre of Oxford Street in London, and it kind of was the lucky break, but also the sensible, like, right, we'll give you access and time, which also means we get access to your clients and thinking. Actually, anything that comes out, we potentially get to produce, but also it just meant if clients came in, we looked more established. We persuaded our first employee to join us we didn't even have a website at that time. So, our employee number one knew us, a guy called Jimmy Hopton. But employee number two, Craig, came in, but he thought we were big, but we didn't even have a website at the time, right? Or we were sort of getting on with the work. So I think, starting agencies is about that. As you said, it's about, have you got a founding client, someone who can, turn the lights on and help you keep the lights on, right? And then just like that obsessive and worry of like never messing up, right? You've got to just keep delivering great work time after time again. I think that's the most important part, right?
Yeah, it sounds like quite the symbiotic relationship there where you're able to get that office space. How important was it, three of you guys, to be all together in an office space? Was it, I know now is a world where we're all sort of working remotely, talking remotely, and I guess if it was just the three of you guys, was that pretty, do you think that was a big part of the success, the collaboration together?
I think so. We didn't really use Zoom marketing. We didn't have access to those sort of tools, collaborative tools like the way we use as a studio. We use Google Slides, Google Deck, that we use. So you didn't have that collaboration ability. And I think when you're setting, I think about this on multiple levels, and this opens a big set of questions and answers around about working from home and working not. I like in the creative industries to be close to people. My creative, Will is a creative design director. He likes me to look at someone and be able to point at the screen and talk to them, right? I love the ability now to stay at home and not have to be on a train at 7:30 on a Monday morning, and those things. There can be really effective days where you can get up and you can start performing. But I do like people together. I always have. I think there's such an important part of production teams, creative teams, the design process, strategic process. More importantly, I think for mentorship for young people. And I think about how my journey and people who took me under their wing and guided me with all my naivety and stupidity and those things. And, it is those water cooler moments where you can grab someone for 5 minutes, like, hey, you bump into them and you can catch them. It's not quite the same. So, I think it's not something we even thought about, should we all be together? I think it was important we felt like we were a company, so we didn't panic.
Yeah.
Because you'd probably panic more when you've got a mortgage and a house to pay for and food and kids and bills to pay for. If you're probably not together and one of you sitting in a living room somewhere and one's somewhere else, you can't see each other, I think there'd be a higher level of anxiety that would set in during that period, 14 years ago.
That resonates with me because I started my agency with 2 kids in my house remotely. So I definitely, with the mortgage and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that definitely speaks to me. But that's really interesting. And maybe, I definitely want to get into, I saw that you were a judge actually too for the Webby Awards.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yep.
How did that so you come to be? Did they reach out to you and just say, Marcus, we'd love to, how does that kind of happen?
When did I join the Institute of the Art? I can't remember. I think it's about over 10, 12 years now, right? And I think because we'd actually, right. Well, here's really interesting. Our first proper Tommy website, we got put up against Pinterest in the category for design function. So we had a really interesting website up against Pinterest. We knew we were never going to win.
Wow.
Like, Pinterest had just come out that year. This is about 12, 13 years ago. So we'd done that, and then I remember shooting a really beautiful film for a UFC fighter, a guy called One Punch Pickett. And we got nominated for the work, and we were up against the BBC and CNN and I think like Olympic coverage and these for the short film that we created with a fighter. And it was me and a DOP had gone out to shoot this thing, right? And created a beautiful bit of work. So we decided we're getting work coming in, and the team, we're getting nominated for the Webbies quite a bit. And I think that's how we joined, right? And the thing I love about doing the Webbies every year, more than anything, I suppose, is the thing I love most about it is just awe-inspiring work. Sometimes you just get blown away again and again and again, and you go, yes, I love that. And then sometimes you see work and you're like, God, it's just what the sad part of that is, you're just kind of like you're entering this thing and not really realizing where you are in terms of a level, and in terms of like how you're delivering work into the market that truly is very distinctive, that truly is great, So I've really enjoyed that. I'm doing my new judging panel right now. Actually, about to sit off probably next week and sit and judge a load of work. And I think the thing I enjoy the most about it is just seeing brilliant work that I might have missed, not seen. It's hard to keep up with everything, right? And that's it. And just marvel every day at the creative industry's brilliance. That's the main point, isn't it?
Do you have any specific campaigns or work that you are personally most proud of in your career?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. I think, in terms of large scale, small scale, I think, filming this UFC fighter was the first time he was going to go and fight in Las Vegas. And I remember, we actually did a brand design for him. It's called One Punch Picket. And, he wears a trilby hat and braces. And, I remember filming him inside his training. He's an American top team. And I was filming him here in London, and I remember being in a training session with him for about 2 hours, and the last half hour he goes live, as they call it. It's like full impact, and we're in this really tight and closed room, and I'm with my DOP, and we're trying to film this thing up. He's doing wrestling against a wall, like cage wrestling, and if he'd fell back, he would have cut his head open on the camera, and he would have probably been out the following week in Vegas. But the work we produced, it was beautiful, it was creative, it was low cost, it was just the two of us. It showed we could be up against the BBC. That's the entrepreneurial spirit in an agency. Nothing stops you creating good work if you believe in yourself. So I think when it comes to small scale stuff, I love that. I think, when I look at things like Netflix, I admire the team and what we've done. We did the Stranger Things country takeover in Thailand. We did a takeover in Malaysia where, we did everything. It was amazing. And as I said, we're not an experiential agency, but we're doing out of home. We're turning bus stops in Kuala Lumpur upside down into upside down houses. We were doing, we took over a whole district, not just an experience house with roller skating ring. I mean, when you see that and that sort of scale of work, we do them like blimey, so you sort of think you've come a long way. And then personally, I think one of my favorite ever projects will be if you ever come into Heathrow Airport, Terminal 2, which is the Queen's Terminal, you'll see the largest living sculpture permanent sculpture in London. In Europe, it's called Slipstream, and it's this undulating form of a plane rolling forward. And it was made by a Royal Academy artist, Richard Wilson. And I got to document that again myself and the DOP in our early days, in the early days of Tumblr, working with a brilliant culture agency. And the thing that I loved about that was having access to an incredible Royal Academy artist, if you look him up, Richard Wilson, and just seeing the process of his ideas. And this thing was 80 meters in length and 80 tons in weight, suspended in the air in Heathrow. It's an incredible thing. So to see the whole process, see all the engineering, to be really up and close like that, that's a personal highlight. I'll never forget. I'll never forget spending a time when I'm not big into my art in terms of understanding the world. And, I was meeting him to interview him on a train. We're doing a 3-hour trip to go and see the first piece of the sculpture. And I remember him saying to me, he used to go to, his dad was, he said, my dad was an alcoholic, and so he's not around anymore. He's never got to see my success. And he said, as a child, he used to take me to the Natural History Museum in London. And there's this beautiful, the whale there in the whale room, this suspended thing, its size and mass. And when you're at art college, you're told, as a sculptor, the thing you shouldn't do is don't do anything too big and don't suspend it. And he said, well, Slipstream's the opposite of all of that. But he said, every time I go in there, I see this thing, and he said to me, I think Slipstream's my blue whale moment, and I was like, oh wow, and it's like almost like in homage and memory to his father, and it made me really sort of really emotional. And you're like, Christ, this is work, but you're getting access to this kind of people and creativity and things. It's quite special, isn't it? In many ways, my career highlights come from sometimes the smallest things, so sometimes something that's the scalable. You think, wow, how the hell have we done that?
And you've been in this game for quite some time now. I wonder, are you changed too much in the business since you began? I mean, obviously technology has changed. There's been so many there's been a lot of different things that have happened, but do you feel like the core of what you do is still the same? And how has that changed in your career?
Well, I suppose it would get me onto the subject of distinctiveness, right? I still think one thing is true. Things either stand out or they don't. You either remember something or you don't. And that is marketing, full stop. In categories, people copy. In categories, people stand out. So I think in terms of creativity and marketing, nothing's changed. Through each generation, obviously, we've gone through. I mean, I remember persuading people to have a website, to create a blog, and why blogging was going to be important. Video marketing, mobile video. So I remember the heralding of each of those generations in essence. And, what we're seeing now with AI, which is going to be incredible. I think it's incredible. It's like, I think it's all about enhancing creativity and the speed you can get to ideas and those things. But I think, the opposite of that is obviously watching out for distinctiveness, because you can then still start creating things that, start morphing into other people. So, the challenges I think are the same. I think the one challenge that is probably the biggest challenge is people's time, right? And that's the thing that's developed over time, and people don't have time. So, that's changed the way I think about marketing a lot. I think a lot about value exchange. I think, as a marketeers, it's a dereliction of duty not to think about how we exercise the brain of the consumer in some way. So when you give them something, if you want someone, value exchange being, if you want someone to spend some time with you, give them something back, entertain them, give them a piece of content that's rewarding, right? Exercise the brain, for Christ's sake, make the cognitive things start moving. If you're not, then what are you doing, right? So I think that's the biggest change, is time, and how people need to start thinking more and more and more deeply about engaging the mind of the consumer and being remembered. I think that's really important. I went into, one of the beauty brands, holding companies that we work with, and they've got some incredible brands. And I put up there's two separate things I wanted to show them. The first one was like, I put 12 influencers up, the videos all up next to each other, and, the product reveal inside store, right? So, I said, well, an influencer walks into store, what happens next? Nothing you haven't seen 1,000 times. And I press play, and all 12 videos of 12 different brands, they just walked into stores at the same time. They found the product at the same time, pulled the product out, smiled, pulled the product up. Almost the timing, the pacing, the editing, the cuts, everything was the same. And, so I said, I marvel at the beauty industry, and your content marketing is brilliant. But when you hold yourself up internally, it might not be working, right? Because how's people remembering you? And that's, I think, the biggest challenge that brands have. They don't necessarily see their marketing issues. They don't necessarily see the problems they have now. And I think, it doesn't matter what the technology, what the idea, whatever platform you're playing in, I think the biggest part of that is thinking about memory activation and distinctiveness. And that's truly something I believe in.
Are you often finding yourself working with other marketing teams within your clients? Are you paired with them often, or are they giving you full creative reign?
We pair with them often. We have multiple ways of working. We work with in-house teams. We work because we bring elevated content. We work very closely. You work with Netflix. They're brilliant. They're brilliant marketeers themselves. They know what works. So really, really, truly collaborative. We've always been a very collaborative agency, never a land grab agency. So that's great. I think then there's also, the way I like to work with the clients is setting creative and strategic challenges they might not be seeing when you start showing them the world of forgetting all the strategy and all the data in the world, but getting down into it and showing how content turns up. And that's my obsession point, right? Showing people, what does something actually look like? What does it really show when you turn up and play? So we do a lot, I work with them quite closely on that. And then obviously we got a strategic team. So when the briefs come in, hand over to them. So I do less and less of that part, which I used to love doing. But now obviously, I'm definitely out beating the drum for, we've launched a Distinctiveness Framework, which we're showing clients how to measure and show them problems and the nuances of what that looks like within their categories. That's really important, the way I work with the marketing teams, probably in all the brands that we work with. And, inspiration sessions with Adobe and, beauty brands and the entertainment brands, kind of something we try and do as a real lead into doing the work.
Yeah, I really like that distinctiveness idea, and it's definitely a differentiator. Really, it does resonate. So I totally get that. Some other interesting things of interest that I had were, I guess, with all these big projects that you guys are working on, how, what is the team kind of look like in terms of, I know you're in multiple locations. Maybe you can describe a little bit of what the team is like and how they all kind of come together in this new
Yeah,
remote world.
most of the stuff we do in house. We make a lot of things, all the augmented reality. We do a lot of, I love the big screens. We do a lot of the big 3D anamorphic screens. We have a team, so we have a team of producers, designers, developers. Pretty traditional, really. We're quite a low weight account management type agency. We're not a traditional creative agency like that. We're not heavy planning, strategy teams, creatives. We've got people who make, people who really get it. I think that's the most important part that we do. And we've got a team in both London and LA and Singapore who really, from a client service point of view, who really sort of get that sort of nuance of what we're trying to do. So we're not kind of traditional. We're not a massive strategy planning agency as such, but we are very strategic in our thought. We're very, very clear on what we're trying to do and our objectives in terms of that. The Singapore team was about 30 people, 35 people. Asia markets, incredible, right? What an incredible place. And then the same in London and head office. And then LA is more of and we have our executive creative director out there, Joe, who's out there, and we have a small team now. So post-COVID, and with all the shifts in the entertainment space, we've not really fully back expanded into LA. And we used to manage LA. Chris and I manage LA and our client relationships from London for 2-3 years, and it worked really, really well because they're 9 hours behind us. We could do a lot of work during the day, be ready to present them at 9 o'clock in the morning. They can have all day to feedback, and the next morning we're starting work while they're asleep. So when you're doing big global toolkits, advertising, digital advertising, social media content, it worked really, really well. And really, we have developers, we don't really build heavy websites, things like that. We don't really do that. We're a lot more augmented reality, still a lot of social content, animators, motion graphics, usual kind of makeup, really. And then we'll bring specialists in when we work on Netflix. So, live people who can do live broadcast. We'll bring an experiential team in, production team in, if we want to move an aeroplane from the set for Netflix across Germany to do a stunt with influencers, or things like that. So that's kind of how we work.
When you hire people, what do you look for quality-wise in terms of people that you feel, that are a good fit for your company?
I mean, I suppose it depends on if someone's experience is great, you can sort of see the experience, what they are, and you can talk to them. If someone's new coming into the industry, you probably look at different things, right? So I'll sort of split those into two. What we look for with people coming into the industry, and then what we look for is people growing into roles. I think, entrepreneurial spirit is always like, can they really, if you come from a big agency, you might not like our environment because it's, sometimes it's quite, it's all hands on deck. It's, it's not, you haven't got strategy teams and planning teams doing your work for you. You have to really get stuck in. So, you want people who are self-motivated, self-driven. I don't like this word, actually. I hate the word passion, but I love people who are just so passionate about parts of the work and the industry and the categories and design or whatever those things are. It doesn't matter what they love, but you want people who love something, right? And if they love something, that's always a really good sign. And also, just sometimes, there's not multiple interviews we've done over the year. I remember interviewing a creative. She was brilliant. And she came into the agency and she said, I won't mention her name or I'll mention this agency, but she's at a brilliant sort of great creative agency in London. And she said, you know what the trouble with you fucking men, she said, is like, I'd never get the good briefs. She said, I'm a young creative and it's really hard for young female creatives. I was like, yeah. And she said, so what would happen is we get these brilliant briefs come in and, there'd be 6 creative teams. They'd get given to the male creative teams. I'd never get it. And she said, something came in for one and she just took the brief, her and a friend in the agency, and they did the response anyway in their own time. And their one won the pitch. And I was like, I fucking love that, right? I absolutely love that. So you always look for something like that in something young and coming up and coming, which is, it shows about biases. It shows about the way agencies can work. It shows multiple things. Also, you've got to keep reminding yourself sometimes if you give someone room to go and grow and let them get on with it, they might really, really, really surprise you. And you have to always keep doing that. And so you try and find those people you think can go, because we want Tommy to be a platform for people to grow and come in and do really well. It's about them. We now spend our time looking after them and nurturing their talent, nurturing their careers. And then someone young coming in, trying to get into the agency space or trying to get into the work, whether it's a designer, someone who wants to come into client services, it's like, what do you love? And if someone writes a blog pieces or they've got I'm fascinated by, tabletops or whatever those things are, you look for something in people. If they haven't got experience that, as well as having good, it might be good academic studies behind them, you look for things that go, what's your sparks? What's the, people are curious, people who look for things, people are, have something really interesting. And those things are really, really important to me. Your curiosity is a big, big part of what we look for.
There's a lot of golden nuggets there. I mean, this podcast is for a couple of reasons, but mostly the main objective is to give value to people in all walks of creative agency life by sharing information and just us all being as collaborative, working together to make great content as we can. But there's a lot of people that are coming into the industry that are new to it. And they want to understand somebody like yourself who is a co-founder of a successful company, what they need to do to get somebody's attention like yourself and what they need to do to get from being a lower level coming up to becoming someday a co-founder. Yeah. So I'm always trying to look for little golden nuggets in that. And I guess the other kind of twist is I'm always interested in understanding different pain points in different creative agencies. So we are all able to collaboratively solve problems together. Yeah. It's just an overall, that's sort of my main objective. So I think what you said really speaks to, definitely what you're looking for. As far as maybe pain points, I know we tip, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, two things on that then. So if Will was answering my question, the design director, one of the things I know he's always looked for in designers and creatives. And so, is if they want to go and learn, that those who go and self-learn, they'll see a piece of software, they'll see something they're experimenting, trying. And quite often, because we work with entertainment clients, someone goes, oh, I've been playing around with, and I'm not a technologist, I've been playing around with this software, look what you can do. And then we'll end up quickly pitch an idea into something like Warner Brothers or Paramount Pictures, and they'll buy an idea quite quickly. It's so that is amazing. Young designers and young motion graphics guys, go in and build. You don't wait for someone to teach. You don't wait for someone to show you what to do. Bring people in, or always keep encouraging them to go and make stuff and do stuff and bring stuff. And at Tommy, we try and create that here. Second part, or just another really important part, is if you read about Netflix, maybe if you haven't, for anyone who's agency side or in the career, look up the Dream Team. If you haven't heard of the Dream Team orientation at Netflix. So if you go onto their human resource section on Netflix, it's fascinating the way they talk about that. We see it play out, the Dream Team orientation. And as you said, smaller agencies, independent agencies, a lot of it's about good collaboration. How well do you truly collaborate with other agencies? You get those who are looking for you to trip up. You get those type of people, you never kind of work with them again. You get those other agencies that they want to get together, have a joint mission to do something great and make something brilliant and get more work coming in, right? And if you find those people, that's really important. We've always found those collaborations, those things that we do, the most important thing, that they lead to so much work. We were a creative partner at Yahoo years back and MSN. And the creative, we used to do those big homepage takeovers on Yahoo. They went to us and brought us clients in. It was wonderful, right? But they trusted us because we worked so hard for them and collaborated with them. And we listened to each other and we understood each other. And then, people from Yahoo left. One of them brought us into Adobe. One of them brought us into another client. So, how you foster your relationships as smaller agencies and independent agencies, I think is crucial, absolutely crucial. So, for all agencies to listen to that, when you partner with someone, don't think about how you can get rid of them or move them on, because that happens. And fair enough, that's your way of operating. We've never kind of been like that. We've never sort of thought about it. It's let's just make some great work, right? And I think great work leads to more great work. And I think that's the way we've always operated.
Yeah, I love that. And I would argue that when you had said that people from some bigger agencies might not, necessarily like the flow, I would say I speak to a lot of industry leaders from really big traditional brand agencies, and a lot of them really are looking for something more like how you're describing the culture at Tommy, where it's maybe you are doing more of a variety of things, and you don't have somebody to delegate all these different strategic parts. But some people like that more collaborative that kind of community. So yeah. I think
I know it. I like if any big agencies are listening, we love to partner with you. We do. So, but listen, no, we do. I think I'm talking about mindset. It doesn't matter whether it's big or small. Mindset's mindset, right? And, we get brought in by big agencies, and we're working on McDonald's and some Coca-Cola and Levi's and things. And that's great. And you get really good teams, and some of them you just don't. I mean, that's just nature of the beast, right? That is nature of the beast.
Totally. What do you see as, I guess, obviously there's been a ton of change in the industry. I'm sure the writers' strikes and all that stuff been through a pandemic. There's fires in Los Angeles. I know we personally have a lot of clients in LA that were affected. Lots of different things have gone on. I guess in looking at the future of the industry, what do you see are some of the pain points? What are some of the struggles in the industry that and maybe how do we overcome some of those?
So I think one of the things that we're really focused on, I think, within the content marketing space, I think is distinctiveness. I think it's the biggest challenge that everyone's got. And, we've personally, as I said, to jump in, but we've been developing a distinctiveness framework that gives people a whole new set of insights about how you measure it. Because, when we look at different types of clients, but direct to consumer brands, the growth of e-commerce and brands, the whole sort of ripping up of the rule books in terms of how you bring products to market has all changed. Anyone can turn up in your feed, right? So we do so much work on TikTok and understanding how it works culturally, and Instagram. We're a Meta partner as well, creative partner. It's really, really important to understand that as the biggest challenge I think brands have got. There's so many not legacy brands, because it's probably not true. There's so many brilliant brands out there who do brilliant marketing, and there's so many brands out there though who are following the playbook, right? Because of the way the data works, algorithms, and what they're taught. And they're not seeing it. They're not seeing the issues they've got. So as I said, you go up against categories and you put them all together, and a lot of them can look brilliant, but actually in the category, you've got to ask, are you selling your category or you're selling your product? So I think that's the biggest shift now. Like, the thing for us is reinventing what that playbook looks like. I think that's the biggest thing that we're doing right now. And what are the drivers for distinctiveness? What are the strategies you have to put in place? If you look at brands, some of my favorite brands, they have very distinct brand worlds. They have very distinct brand assets, story worlds, what I call the rule of law, their story world and how they turn up, and they're really focused on that. And they go in there really hard, and they keep working on that brand to deliver those stories. You look at a lot of brands coming into the market, you look at innovation brands, they have some great products, they have some great packaging, great design, but you look at all the content, kind of all looks the same. So I think there's a big problem right across the industry at the moment, across multiple categories. For all the brilliant brands you've got another whole series of brands who are just like, you're just not getting it. You're not getting what your problems are. And there must be so much wastage going on. So I think that's a big part for us, the next year or two, is rethinking about what social media really means. That's up against the backdrop of people are sick and tired of their phones. They're tired. Because they're getting, as I said, this value exchange. You should be entertaining someone. You should give something, of value to someone if you want them to listen to you and remember you, right? And then, you look into luxury marketing, for example, the whole idea of quiet luxury, the whole idea of switching phones off. There's a whole movement there. So I think we have to really start to consider our content marketing strategies, how we stand out, how we entertain people, that value exchange, what we truly offering if we want people to buy us. And we have to think about, in reality, what people's lives are like now. And I think that's the biggest thing we're up against the next 24 months. So I don't know what you think, Justin.
Yeah, no, I mean, I find that really fascinating. And I was wondering what you believe. Why is it that so many of these things, they're just delivering the same thing over and over again? Do you think it's a lack of just caring? Do you think it's just a lack of, do you think it's just one company might just be like, oh, well, these guys are doing successful this way, so I'm just going to do the same thing and try to sort of just go by the mimicry? What is sort of like, why aren't other agencies maybe thinking about it like you are?
Well, I'm sure agencies are. We've launched a distinctiveness framework based on neuroscience and academic studies to what makes something distinctive. And there's 4 things that make them distinctive. So we've done that. I can explain that a bit more in a minute. But I don't think, if I look in brand teams, I look at products, I see people are so passionate about their products and their categories. If they're selling ice cream, or if they're selling sausages, or whatever it is, they love, some of these people love their categories, right? And they're very proud.
Yeah.
So I think there's just this knowledge gap sometimes of what actually works, standing and understanding that. So I think some of it comes from knowledge gaps. Some of it's like there's problems you're just not seeing yet because you're not viewing it the right way. You're looking at the data the wrong way, and you're looking at things. We see the social playbook and go, oh, that must be great. This other ice cream brand are doing that. Let's go and do that. Well, yes, it's okay to copy the playbook for small brands who don't have big marketing teams or access to budgets. Can lift you up 70% of the way there, right? But for some brands, it's not good enough, and you're falling over, and your content's just not good enough. It's not interesting. There's no value exchange. It doesn't exercise the brain. And I don't know if you know a book, and it's sitting over there on the shelves. My creative partner Will always bangs it over the head sometimes. The creative teams. It's called Smile in the Mind. It's about that 75-25 rule. You give something 75%, and they've got to look at it, and they bring something to it. And if they bring something to it, it becomes really memorable. And I think it's a really interesting way of thinking about marketing now. Like, how much are we doing of memory activation? I'll give you a great example. I wrote one down actually. This is really good. There's a razor blade company, and it was an out-of-home billboard, and it was on the tube as well. And it says, "A razor with quite a good blade is like an acrobat with quite a good grip." Wilkerson swords. I was like, yeah, I love that. Just the idea of like, so you've engaged my brain, you've engaged my memory. So many brands and categories just aren't sort of engaging people's brains. They're just not. And they don't understand. I just don't think they understand that. So where on one half in their brand world, they're experiential, the out of home, the creative sometimes, their strategies, they're doing so much brilliant work. But then you get into the channels, and some of these brands, you look up and they go, is that really good enough now? Am I going to remember that final piece? That last mile is just like bonk, falling over a bit, I think, on some categories, right? And that's why I go around the world. I go around showing people brands that I love in gin, in marketing, in whether it's travel, multiple brands across multiple categories. Go, this is what you need to be thinking about and how you think about it. I think that's really important.
Yeah, without going into too much depth of it or politics or anything like that, it's pretty obvious that there's a lot of turbulence in our world, in different worldviews, and how everything has been. I mean, I definitely, in America, it's feels pretty. It's rocky. I would say my question for you is: do you think that turbulence gives, and I know you had mentioned like it's understanding the world of what's going on is part of what makes the marketing so powerful. Do you think this gives us a unique opportunity in marketing to maybe influence something more positive and something maybe more compassionate and maybe could there be like a real renaissance here that brings people together?
I'd love to think so, wouldn't you? Right? Hey, it's time for a content revolution. Why not? Let's think about that. I think there's so much going on. The economic forces, the reality of people's lives and what's going on with budgets, how much money people have at home, with people staying in work, all those economic factors around the globe, right? And people are tired. It's tiresome, and divisive politics, all those things we're not going to get into. And I just think creativity has always been a breakthrough, hasn't it? It always has been a moment. It's always been something that can make you laugh and cry and make you feel something. And I think we just need to feel more things more regularly at the moment. I put up on LinkedIn a couple of days ago my favorite ever Super Bowl. I think probably my favorite ever Super Bowl ad, and it was Dodge Rams trucks. It was God Made a Farm.
I watched that,
and it's like just got me in the field. I just had my second child. You're a father and you're emotional. And it was all about like what the farmer does, and the backbone of society and those things, and celebrating that. But as you said, it's about creativity. It can help sort of cheer the world up, or it can make the world a better place, right? So I think there's a lot of that, and that takes you back to that idea that as marketeers, it's a dereliction of duty not to think about how we exercise the mind of the consumers now, and like give them stuff that's really going to give them some value. I think that's really, really important moving forward. So at least if you're doing something, you're offering something of value, right? Because people want to escape. They want to. They want to experience things. They want something different from the realities of what's going on. So if you're going to be that moment and turn up. Don't be intrusive, and use creativity in your platform and your budgets to do something really positive. Why not?
I love it. Well, Marcus, we got about 5 more minutes. So I just wanted to, I know we've gotten big into all the agency stuff, but I'd be curious, just from human to human, what do you like to do? What are some other things outside of work that you enjoy doing and in your
Well,
life?
I think my last couple of years have been spent either driving one of my sons to football, so you sort of you lose a little bit of that, right? So I'm a Chelsea fan. I'm a season ticket holder for those who watch the Premier League. So I've had these same seats, 2 seats there for 20 years. So I try and get to watch a bit of football. London's London, right? We've got arts, culture, we've got everything, music. I've got people who work across all those industries. So, I'm always out and about sampling culture in its multiple ways. Probably can tell by the size. I'm a big foodie, so, that's obviously the classic archetype really is of what that is, right? And I love fashion, food, music, life. So that they're the things I'm sort of trying to occupy myself with when I'm not working or driving my child around, to a football match of some description. But London's, I think London's a great hotbed for still, I love these cities. I love when, you see what goes on in Singapore and Tokyo, and, you see all these cities and these different influences and creative influences coming back, and it's all roads lead to marketing. I suppose I never stop sort of thinking about the world of creativity and what's around me and what I love and the touch of something, the feel of something. It's just sort of innately in me, I suppose. It always has been. It's now about, I suppose, how I use that positively and how I use that to think a bit more, I suppose. I'll probably do a bit more of that now. I'm in, the age I'm at now.
That's all exciting stuff. I mean, I knew it was going to be a fun conversation with you because I knew you had those same black frame glasses as I do, and I knew we would be a kindred spirit here. But yeah, I really appreciate the time and the insights and learning more about Tommy and everything you guys do. And yeah, I look forward to staying in touch and hopefully we can get you back on the pod again and continue to add value to all the people that are listening here.
Brilliant, Justin. I really appreciate the conversation, appreciate the questions. You're obviously the smart one here, so that's good. I've enjoyed the session today. Your glasses look fantastic, by the way. It's brilliant. This is the creative look, right?
Oh, thank you.
This is the thing that I say, like, I am in the creative industry. Well, really, in truth, maybe I'm not.
Before our conversation, I was going through some of your previous podcasts and listening to you speak, and I was like, man, this guy's pretty smart. I had a little bit of, honestly, I had some imposter syndrome before having our conversation today. So I'm glad I'm viewed as a smart one because I'm, I obviously I work in the creative agency space. I do a lot of recruitment. I use the podcast, I guess the final bit of it is to learn myself so I can offer intelligent conversation to other people, guide people well, also add value. So I'm always here with an open mind, trying to learn from people like you. And I really do thank you for being here today and speaking with us. And we'll and have a great weekend, and we'll chat pretty soon.